In 1955, a young actor named Rock Hudson stood before studio executives, his hands trembling as he signed a marriage contract that would define the next decade of his life. The bride? A woman he barely knew. The reason? To hide a truth so dangerous it could destroy everything he had worked for. What if the most celebrated stars of Hollywood's golden age were living double lives, trapped behind masks of their own making? Tonight, we uncover the hidden stories of 10 legendary performers who sacrificed their authentic selves for fame, fortune, and survival in an industry that demanded perfection, but only on its own terms. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. These stories deserve to be remembered. Rock Hudson, the all-American lie. Rock Hudson embodied everything 1950s America wanted in a leading man. At 6'5", with piercing blue eyes and a jaw that could have been carved from marble, he became the template for masculine perfection on screen. Yet behind the carefully constructed image of Hollywood's most eligible bachelor lay a man drowning in his own deception. Born Roy Harold Scherer, Jr. in Illinois, Hudson's path to stardom was orchestrated by agent Henry Wilson, a man who specialized in manufacturing heterosexual fantasies from gay actors. Wilson changed Roy's name, sculpted his persona, and most crucially, arranged his marriage to his own secretary, Phyllis Gates, in 1955. The marriage was a business transaction disguised as romance. Gates would later claim she had no idea about Hudson's sexuality, though recorded conversations suggest otherwise. For 3 years, they played their roles perfectly, the devoted couple gracing magazine covers, attending premieres, and fooling an entire nation. But behind closed doors, Hudson lived his truth. He maintained relationships with men throughout his marriage and career, always under the constant threat of exposure. Private investigators followed him. Studio executives monitored his movements. One wrong photograph, one careless moment, and his career would have been over. The irony was devastating. Hudson starred in romantic comedies with Doris Day, becoming America's fantasy boyfriend while being unable to love freely himself. When he finally succumbed to AIDS in 1985, his diagnosis became front-page news, shattering the illusion he had spent decades maintaining. In death, he became more authentic than he had ever been allowed to be in life. James Dean, the rebel who couldn't speak. His truth. James Dean's life lasted only 24 years, but in that brief span, he became the embodiment of youthful rebellion and angst. His 3 films, East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant, immortalized him as the ultimate outsider. What the public didn't know was that Dean's rebellion extended far beyond his on-screen persona. Dean arrived in Hollywood carrying secrets that would have destroyed his career before it began. Born in Indiana and raised by relatives after his mother's death, he had already begun exploring his sexuality during his theater days in New York. When he signed with Warner Brothers, the studio immediately began crafting his image as the brooding heartthrob who could make any woman's heart skip. The irony was thick. Dean was marketed alongside Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter as one of Hollywood's most eligible bachelors, yet all 3 men were gay or bisexual. They attended premieres with starlets, posed for fan magazines, and lived the heterosexual fantasy their contracts demanded. Dean's relationships with men were kept in the shadows. His roommate, William Bast, later admitted to their intimate relationship. Elizabeth Taylor, his co-star in Giant, claimed Dean confided in her about childhood abuse by a priest. The pattern suggested a young man grappling with trauma, identity, and the suffocating expectations of stardom. When Dean died in that fatal car crash in 1955, he took his secrets with him. The speculation began immediately and has never stopped. Perhaps that's fitting for someone who spent his brief career playing characters searching for their place in the world. Dean himself never found that place, caught between who he was and who the world needed him to be. Montgomery Clift, the method actor's hidden method. Montgomery Clift brought a new intensity to Hollywood acting, pioneering what would later be called method acting. His performances in films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity revealed emotional depths that left audiences breathless. What they witnessed on screen was a man channeling his own inner turmoil into art. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Clift never completely hid his sexuality. He lived in New York rather than Los Angeles, maintaining distance from the Hollywood gossip mill. His mother, in a recorded conversation with his brother, casually mentioned that Montgomery had been gay since childhood, around age 12 or 13. This openness, relative though it was, came with a price. Clift never achieved the same level of mainstream success as actors who played the heterosexual game more convincingly. He turned down lucrative studio contracts, preferring single-picture deals that gave him artistic control but left him financially vulnerable. His relationship with Elizabeth Taylor became legendary, a deep friendship that transcended romantic categories. Taylor understood Clift in ways the public never could, recognizing his struggles with identity and addiction. When Clift was disfigured in a car accident during the filming of Raintree County, Taylor literally held his face together until help arrived. Clift's later years were marked by alcohol abuse and declining health. The man who had revolutionized screen acting found himself typecast as troubled characters, his personal struggles becoming indistinguishable from his professional identity. He died alone in his New York townhouse in 1966, having given everything to his art while receiving little peace in return. His legacy endures not just in his performances, but in his refusal to completely compromise his identity for Hollywood's comfort. Cary Grant, the sophisticated arrangement. Cary Grant represented the pinnacle of sophisticated masculinity, debonair, witty, and irresistibly charming. His transatlantic accent and impeccable style made him the template for leading men for decades. Yet Grant's most convincing performance may have been his own life, a carefully choreographed dance around his true nature. The most revealing aspect of Grant's private life was his 12-year cohabitation with actor Randolph Scott. Beginning in 1932, they lived together in a Los Angeles mansion they nicknamed Bachelor Hall. Studio publicity departments worked overtime to explain this arrangement, presenting them as economical roommates sharing expenses during the Depression. The relationship persisted even as both men married women. Grant wed Virginia Cherrill in 1934, but Scott continued living in their shared home. Photographs from this period show them at ease together, cooking, lounging by the pool, entertaining guests. To modern eyes, they appear unmistakably domestic. Grant's sexuality became an open secret in Hollywood circles. Director George Cukor, himself gay, remarked that Grant wouldn't discuss it directly, but that Scott was more open about their relationship. The arrangement allowed both men to maintain their careers while finding companionship and possibly love. Grant's 5 marriages can be seen as attempts to provide the heterosexual cover his career demanded. Each wife served a purpose in his public narrative, while his private affections may have remained elsewhere. When Barbara Walters asked him directly about being gay in a 1986 interview, Grant's response was telling, "Everyone says I'm gay, and I guess I am, but I don't really know." This ambiguity defined Grant's entire existence, forever sophisticated, forever mysterious, forever just beyond reach of definitive categorization. Spencer Tracy, the Catholic conflict. Spencer Tracy was Hollywood's everyman, gruff, honest, and undeniably masculine. His 9 Academy Award nominations and 2 wins established him as one of cinema's greatest actors. Yet behind his blue-collar persona lay conflicts that would define his entire life: his Catholic faith, his marriage, and desires he may never have fully accepted. Tracy's relationship with actress Katharine Hepburn became one of Hollywood's great love stories, a 27-year partnership that endured despite Tracy's refusal to divorce his wife Louise. The official narrative painted Tracy as a devoted Catholic who wouldn't break his marriage vows, but rumors suggested more complex motivations. Hollywood insiders whispered about Tracy's relationships with men, particularly a long-term connection with actor John Derek. These allegations were always carefully contained, buried under the more palatable story of his affair with Hepburn. Studio executives understood that Tracy's Catholic guilt made him easier to control than other stars. His shame kept him compliant. Tracy's battles with alcoholism may have stemmed from this internal conflict. A deeply religious man struggling with desires his faith condemned, he found solace in drinking that often turned destructive. He trashed film sets, disappeared for days during productions, and earned a reputation as one of Hollywood's most difficult stars. His relationship with Hepburn provided the perfect cover, a passionate, unconventional romance that satisfied public curiosity while deflecting deeper questions. Hepburn, with her own complex relationship with sexuality and gender norms, may have understood Tracy's struggles better than anyone. Tracy died in 1967, taking his secrets with him. His legacy remains that of a great actor and devoted Catholic, the contradictions of his private life smoothed away by time and careful publicity management. Anthony Perkins, the psycho's real horror. Anthony Perkins created one of cinema's most memorable characters in Norman Bates, the disturbed young man in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. The irony was devastating. Perkins portrayed a character driven mad by sexual repression while living his own life in the closet, terrified of exposure. Born into a theatrical family, Perkins showed early promise as an actor. His breakthrough came with Fear Strikes Out, where he played baseball player Jimmy Pearsall. The role established him as Hollywood's go-to actor for sensitive, neurotic characters, parts that would define and eventually limit his career. His relationship with actor Tab Hunter was one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. They were seen together constantly, sharing homes and vacations, yet both maintained the pretense of bachelorhood. Hunter later described their relationship as loving but complicated by the pressures of their careers. The success of Psycho in 1960 should have launched Perkins into major stardom, but instead it typecast him as Hollywood's favorite psychopath. Directors saw him as inherently disturbed, his nervous energy and angular features perfect for unsettling characters. The roles reflected his own internal turmoil, a gay man trapped in an industry that demanded heterosexual performance. In 1973, Perkins shocked friends by marrying photographer Barry Berenson. The marriage appeared genuine, producing 2 sons and lasting until Perkins' death. Yet friends wondered whether this was his final, most convincing performance, a desperate attempt to achieve the normalcy that had always eluded him. When Perkins died of AIDS in 1992, the news revealed the secret he had guarded most carefully. Even in death, he couldn't escape the shadows that had defined his life, his illness becoming another source of shame rather than sympathy. Marlon Brando, the Wild One's wilder truth. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting with his raw, animalistic performances in films like A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront. His method acting and rebellious persona made him the template for the modern movie star. Yet Brando's most daring performance may have been his own sexuality, fluid, unapologetic, and years ahead of its time. Unlike his contemporaries, Brando rarely bothered with elaborate deceptions about his private life. In a 1976 French interview, he casually mentioned his homosexual experiences, stating, "Homosexuality is so much in fashion it no longer makes news. Like a large number of men, I too have had homosexual experiences, and I am not ashamed." This openness came with consequences. Brando's career trajectory differed markedly from more closeted stars. While Rock Hudson and Cary Grant maintained leading man status well into their 50s, Brando found himself increasingly cast as character actors and villains as he aged. His alleged relationships read like a who's who of Hollywood masculinity. Reports connected him to James Dean, with whom he supposedly had a dominant submissive relationship. Writer James Baldwin was another rumored partner, along with comedian Richard Pryor, a claim later confirmed by Pryor's widow. Brando's attitude toward sexuality reflected his broader rejection of social conventions. He married 3 times and had numerous children, but seemed to view monogamy and traditional relationships as unnecessary limitations. His infamous statement that he'd sleep with anything, even a mailbox, captured his approach to desire as natural and uncomplicated. This sexual honesty may have cost him mainstream acceptance, but it preserved his artistic integrity. Brando never had to live a double life because he refused to acknowledge that his desires were shameful, a radical position in Hollywood's golden age. Raymond Burr, the defense attorney's perfect alibi. Raymond Burr spent 9 years playing Perry Mason, the brilliant defense attorney who never lost a case. His commanding presence and authoritative voice made him one of television's most trusted figures. Yet Burr's greatest legal victory may have been his successful defense against inquiries into his own private life, a case built entirely on fabricated evidence. When Perry Mason premiered in 1957, Burr was 40 years old and had never been convincingly linked to any woman romantically. Studio executives worried that his bachelor status would invite unwanted speculation, so Burr crafted an elaborate mythology about his tragic romantic history. He claimed to have been married to a Scottish actress who died in a 1943 plane crash alongside actor Leslie Howard. He spoke movingly of their brief happiness and his enduring grief. Later, he added a second fictional wife who died of cancer, and even a son who died in the same accident as his first wife. These stories were complete fabrications, but they served their purpose perfectly. Burr's tragic backstory explained his single status while generating sympathy rather than suspicion. The press respected his privacy, treating him as a man too wounded by loss to love again. Meanwhile, Burr had found genuine love with actor Robert Benavides, whom he met during the production of Perry Mason in 1960. They remained together for 33 years until Burr's death in 1993, running businesses together and sharing a life that had to remain hidden from public view. Burr's fictional marriages were perhaps the most successful legal defense in Hollywood history, a case that protected not just his career, but his right to love freely, even if that love had to remain invisible to the world. Tab Hunter, the all-American boy's secret. Tab Hunter embodied every parent's dream of the ideal son, blonde, wholesome, and devastatingly handsome. His clean-cut image made him one of the 1950s biggest teen idols, with hit records and starring roles in family-friendly films. Yet Hunter's greatest performance was his public persona itself, a carefully maintained facade that hid his authentic self for decades. Born Arthur Galeon, Hunter was discovered at age 18 while riding horses in Los Angeles. Agent Henry Wilson, who specialized in creating male stars, renamed him and began constructing his image as America's sweetheart. The name Tab supposedly came from his habit of picking up restaurant tabs, while Hunter suggested masculine outdoor pursuits. Studio executives at Warner Brothers were well aware of Hunter's sexuality, but invested heavily in maintaining his heterosexual image. They arranged dates with starlets, planted stories about his romantic interests, and carefully managed his public appearances. Hunter played along, understanding that his career depended on the performance. His relationship with Anthony Perkins was one of Hollywood's most carefully hidden romances. Both men were major stars, both were gay, and both understood that exposure would end their careers. They lived together discreetly, vacationed together, and maintained the fiction of being bachelors focused on their work. The pressure took its toll. Hunter struggled with anxiety and depression, knowing that one careless moment could destroy everything he had built. When Scandal magazine Confidential prepared to expose him in 1955, Warner Brothers intervened, trading information about another star to kill the story. Hunter didn't publicly acknowledge his sexuality until his 2005 autobiography, 50 years after achieving stardom. By then, the world had changed enough to accept his truth, but he had spent his prime years hiding behind a mask that became a prison. Clark Gable. The King's Complicated Crown. Clark Gable reigned as the undisputed king of Hollywood for over 2 decades, his roguish charm and masculine swagger defining screen masculinity for generations. His performance as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind cemented his legend, yet the man behind the mustache was more complex and vulnerable than his public image suggested. Gable's early life was marked by hardship and uncertainty about his own identity. Born into poverty in Ohio, he worked as a lumberjack and oil rig worker before finding his way to Hollywood. His father frequently called him derogatory names, planting seeds of insecurity that would follow him throughout his career. His first significant relationship in Hollywood was with acting coach Josephine Dillon, whom he married largely for career advancement. Gable later claimed the marriage was never consummated, suggesting it was purely transactional. His early struggles included alleged relationships with men, including actor William Haynes and members of traveling theater companies. The most telling incident occurred during the filming of Gone with the Wind, when director George Cukor was abruptly fired. Rumors suggested that Gable demanded Cukor's removal after someone at a party referred to Gable as one of Billy's old tricks, referencing his alleged past with William Haynes. Gable reportedly declared he wouldn't be directed by a fairy. This homophobic outburst may have been defensive overcompensation from someone struggling with his own sexuality. Throughout his career, Gable maintained relationships with both men and women, earning a reputation as bisexual among Hollywood insiders, while publicly maintaining his image as the ultimate ladies' man. His marriage to Carole Lombard represented genuine love, but her death in a 1942 plane crash left him devastated. The loss seemed to deepen his contradictions, a man who had achieved everything success could offer, but never found peace with himself. These 10 stories reveal the true cost of Hollywood's golden age glamour, not just the carefully crafted images we remember, but the authentic lives that were sacrificed to create them. Each of these performers paid a different price for stardom. Rock Hudson's loveless marriage, James Dean's tortured secrecy, Montgomery Clift's self-destructive honesty, and Anthony Perkins' lifelong performance of normalcy. The tragedy isn't just that these men had to hide their true selves. It's that their deception was so complete, so necessary for survival, that it became indistinguishable from their reality. They lived in a time when authenticity was a luxury their careers couldn't afford, when love had to be hidden, and when their greatest performances happened not on screen, but in the carefully orchestrated theater of their daily lives. Yet their stories also reveal remarkable resilience. These men found ways to love, to create meaningful relationships, and to support each other in an industry designed to isolate them. They formed a shadow network of understanding, recognizing each other across crowded rooms and offering silent solidarity in a hostile world. Today, as we celebrate their films and performances, we can also honor their complete humanity. Not just the characters they played, but the complex, courageous, and often contradictory men they were. Their legacy isn't diminished by these revelations. It's made more powerful by the recognition of what they overcame to give us the art we still treasure. In remembering them fully, we ensure that their sacrifices weren't in vain, and that future generations of performers will never have to choose between authenticity and success the way these Golden Age legends did. Thank you for watching this tribute to Hollywood's hidden history. If these stories moved you, please subscribe and share them with others, because the truth, no matter how long it takes to emerge, always deserves to be told.